The protesters marching in the street, hitting police with wooden signs, fighting in the crowd. 3 prominent Jewish speakers took the stage last night inside at the DNC: Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff. But none of them mentioned Israel by name. President Biden also skipped over Israel in his Monday night speech, but he did acknowledge the protesters. Democrat strategist and pollster Mark Penn was on this program yesterday, and here's what he said about why we're not hearing the word Israel at the DNC this week. Watch.
I was stunned that it's clear that the speakers have been told not to use the word Israel. I know how this works. I've planned these conventions. I've given out the speeches. A third of our entire fleet and Navy right now is protecting Israel from a possible attack by Iran. And what does he do? He throws an olive branch to protesters without once mentioning his support for Israel.
Joining us right now is Heritage Foundation Vice President of National Security and Foreign Policy, Deputy National Security Advisor under President Trump, Victoria Coates. Victoria, good to see you. Your reaction that Mark Penn believes they've been told don't mention the word Israel.
Good morning, Maria. No, it's remarkable. They don't want to talk about national security at all. The president, when he spoke, said that the protesters have a point. Well, you saw them just there in the clip that you played. They have signs that say, "We love Hamas." They have signs that say, "We hate Israel," and then they're burning American flags. That's a key point. That's what they did here in Washington last month when Prime Minister Netanyahu was here. They went to Union Station. They dragged down those 3 iconic American flags, burned them, and raised Palestinian flags in front of Union Station in Washington, D.C. So this isn't just anti-Israel, it's anti-American. And the Democrats in Chicago can't even talk about it.
And yet Joe Biden says they have a point in his speech the other night? I mean, what do you know about Kamala Harris's foreign policy, Victoria? We've been trying hard to figure out where her North Star is on economic policy, but I want to get your take on foreign policy. So there's nothing on her website. We have no idea what she wants to do in the next 4 years. Do you know what you believe to be her foreign policy ideas?
Well, we know some of the people who are working for her, and the primary architect of her foreign policy is a man named Philip Gordon, who also worked for President Obama, was his chief person for the Middle East on the National Security Council staff. And this was during the second Obama term when they were negotiating the Iran deal, the nuclear deal. And Gordon was the architect also of Obama's Israel policy. And when Obama did a very important thing in that second term, he went to Israel and he said, you face a choice here. You either give the Palestinians a state, or we are going to reconsider whether or not we think of you as a democracy. And that really gets to the heart of the U.S.-Israel relationship, because we are both democracies. They are by far and away the strongest democracy in the Middle East. And if you have the American president saying that at the behest of one of his top advisors, it really throws a chill into the relationship. So my concern is we're going to hear similar rhetoric out of the vice president tomorrow night when she speaks.
Yeah.
And we could really face a crisis in U.S.-Israel relations.
Well, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken continues to push for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, but officials familiar with the U.S.-backed proposal say that the two sides are not close at all on agreeing on a deal. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it recovered the bodies of 6 hostages in Gaza in an overnight mission. A major blow to Hamas as they continue to use Israeli hostages for leverage, although Israeli officials believe there are still dozens of hostages alive and in Hamas captivity. Victoria, it's amazing to me that every time we hear Blinken pushing for this ceasefire, we don't hear any promises whatsoever or any aggressive pushes toward getting those hostages out.
No, and we certainly don't hear about them in Chicago. And President Trump has been very careful to mention the hostages every time he talks about this situation, which is critically important because they include half a dozen Americans who have been held for almost a year now. And yes, I mean, it's sickening to think about the fact that Hamas executed those 6 men and kept their bodies in a tunnel for months and months on end. You know, at least that the bodies were recovered to give the family some peace. But Hamas has rejected yet another ceasefire deal. I think that the message should be sent very clearly to Qatar and Egypt, who are helping with the negotiations here, that we are not actually interested in a ceasefire anymore. Hamas is losing this war. They will lose it when they've been finally decimated. They can sue for peace terms. That's what the United States and Israel will talk to them about. But we have to be done with this kind of parlor game of chasing them around, trying to get them to agree to something that they're simply not going to agree to. It's sort of theater of the absurd going on over there, Maria.
That's a great point that you make. Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence officials have confirmed that Iran was behind the hacking into former President Trump's election campaign that allowed hackers to impersonate a Trump advisor and gain access to other campaign email accounts. Meanwhile, Harris's national security advisor, Philip Gordon, is still under investigation by House Republicans for ties to Iran, allegedly promoting the Iranian regime's interests. And former Biden administration envoy to Iran, Robert Malley, is also accused of sharing classified documents with Tehran. What's going on here? Her advisors are all under investigation because of their ties to Iran?
Yeah, we have to wonder if there's anyone in this administration who isn't compromised by Iran at this point. And we've had these series of events. We've had the reported assassination plot against President Trump. We've had the report from the DNI that the Iranians are actually paying for these demonstrations that we're seeing. So the Iranians are paying for the spectacle in Chicago. They're organizing all of that. And now we have the hacking. And this happened to me back in 2020 after the Soleimani strike. So it's really quite frightening. When they create these dummy accounts, they impersonate your friends to you, so you give them information, and then they create an account that appears to be you and send out fraudulent emails on your behalf. So the fact that they're now trying to meddle in our elections shows we have an enemy right here at home, Maria. They're not thousands and thousands of miles away. They're here in the United States.
Yeah, and that's just one of the enemies we're talking about. There's China, there's Russia, North Korea, on top of Iran. Victoria, good to talk with you. Thanks very much. Victoria Coates joining us this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back.